London, 1825. The air inside the Bank of England carries the scent of ink, polished mahogany, and fear. Outside, the cobblestone streets remain quiet. But inside the vault, something has broken. The gold is gone. Not stolen, simply drained. Sovereign by sovereign, into speculative investments that have turned to ash across the Atlantic. The bank's directors stand in silence. They have discovered the unthinkable. The Central Reserve of the world's most powerful empire holds less than 100,000 pounds in actual metal. The empire of finance is standing on an empty floor. We tell economic history as a series of unique disasters. The South Sea Bubble, the Great Depression, the global financial crisis. Each one framed as a singular event, a freak accident, a black swan. But this is a comfortable fiction. The machinery of collapse is not random. It is a repeating architecture. And if you study the crisis that almost broke capitalism in the summer of 1914, you will find a blueprint that fits our present moment with chilling precision. Not because history rhymes, but because the structural pressures are identical. The crisis of 1914 has been erased from public memory, buried beneath the trenches of the First World War that followed it. But before the first artillery shell landed, the global financial system had already collapsed completely. Every stock exchange on Earth closed its doors. The international gold standard, the supposed anchor of permanent prosperity, shattered in a single week. Cross-border capital flows, the lifeblood of the first great era of globalization, stopped dead. It was not a recession. It was a seizure of the entire circulatory system of modern wealth. The trigger was an assassination in Sarajevo, but the cause was a structure so brittle that any shock would have broken it. For decades, Europe had built a pyramid of interlocking financial obligations. Nations borrowed from nations, who borrowed from banks, who borrowed from each other. The same collateral was pledged multiple times. The same gold reserves were counted on multiple balance sheets. When the moment of truth arrived, everyone discovered the same thing. The assets they thought they owned existed only as ledger entries. The actual resources did not match the claims upon them. This is the definition of a liquidity illusion. And it is the exact condition we have rebuilt today in the global dollar system, in the repo markets, in the collateral chains that stretch across derivatives books worth hundreds of trillions of dollars. Here is the pattern. The crisis begins not in poverty, but in prosperity. A long period of stability creates confidence. Confidence creates leverage. Leverage creates fragility. Fragility waits for a catalyst. In 1914, the catalyst was a political assassination. In 2008, it was a housing market in Nevada and California. In the next iteration, it could be a sovereign debt repricing, a commercial real estate collapse, or a clearinghouse failure. The catalyst is irrelevant. The structure is everything. Consider what happened when the 1914 crisis hit. The greatest economists of the age, the men who had written the textbooks on monetary science, were completely blindsided. They believed the international gold standard was subtle-correcting, a natural mechanism that could not fail because it was built on immutable laws of value. This belief system prevented them from seeing the contradiction at its core. An immovable anchor attached to a system of explosive credit creation. The same intellectual blindness exists today. Modern central bankers believe their models can contain inflation without breaking something. They believe quantitative tightening is a controlled process. They believe the plumbing of the repo market has been fixed. Every era produces experts who mistake the absence of collapse for proof of stability. The resolution of 1914 teaches us something dark about what comes next. The system did not heal. It was simply placed on life support. Central banks issued emergency currency. Governments declared moratoriums on debt payments. Exchange controls replaced free capital movement. The patient was kept alive, but at the cost of euthanizing the market mechanism itself. And then the real bill came due. The financial crisis was swallowed by a military one, and the debts were inflated away through the destruction of war. The erasure of empires, and the impoverishment of entire social classes who held bonds and savings that became worthless. The wealth transfer was total, not a technical correction, a generational reset. We are now inside the same sequence. The 2008 crisis was the warning tremor. The COVID response was the moratorium phase, the unprecedented issuance of currency, the suspension of market signals, the absorption of private debt onto public balance sheets. The inflation of 2022 was the first pressure release, and now we wait. The financial system is more interconnected than in 1914, more leveraged in the invisible places, more dependent on the assumption that liquidity will always be provided. But the assumption itself is the vulnerability. What distinguishes those who navigate these cycles from those who are consumed by them is not intelligence, it is structural awareness. Most people look at the price of assets. A few look at the foundation beneath the price. The foundation is compromised, not in a way that requires conspiracy to explain, in a way that requires only the recognition that 50 years of debt accumulation have created promises that exceed the productive capacity to fulfill them. Someone will absorb the loss. The only question is whether you are positioned as a creditor, holding paper claims, or as an owner of what cannot be printed. The forgotten crisis of 1914 whispers a warning that the noise of daily markets drowns out. Civilizations do not collapse from external shocks alone. They collapse from internal architectures that have grown too rigid to bend. The music of global finance continues to play, as it always does before the closing bell. But the floor beneath it is the same empty floor that stood beneath Threadneedle Street 2 centuries ago. The gold is already gone. What remains is the faith that it will reappear before anyone asks to see it.